Welcome to the Money Mastermind Show. Let's talk money.
And welcome to the Money Mastermind Show. Tonight, we are talking about what it takes to be an entrepreneur. To help us with entrepreneurship, and hopefully somebody can help me spell this and pronounce it as well because it's a pretty tough word, we have Jason Vitug of frugal.com, and that's PHROOGAL.com, so you don't enter in the wrong thing in your URL if you're looking for him. Hi, Jason. Welcome to our show.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
This is going to be fun. And, of course, we have the members of the Money Mastermind Show. We are welcoming back Kyle Prevost. He's been away on his nuptials of youngandthrifty.ca. We have Miranda Marquit of Planting Money Seeds, Peter Anderson of Bible Money Matters. Tom Drake of the Canadian Finance Blog is away tonight, but he is also part of our panel here. And I'm Glenn Craig of Free From Broke, and I'll be a moderator tonight. Before we start, I want to direct you to our event page. If you are watching us live, there is a Q&A app, and if you have any questions about being an entrepreneur, feel free to drop a question, and we'll see if we can get to it because questions are fun. So, let's get started. How about just a general definition of what an entrepreneur is? It's a pretty fancy word, and I think it gets thrown around a lot. You know, you see it in a lot of magazines. You hear it in the tech world. Everybody wants to have this fancy entrepreneur life, but what is it that we're actually talking about?
I actually hear that word a lot. Living in Silicon Valley, then living outside of New York City. Entrepreneurship. You are a business owner, but it's a state of being. It's a lifestyle. It really is a lifestyle where you're immersed in every facet of your business. That you are your business. There's more of a purpose than there is that dollar sign. But then there is that focus on profitability as well. So,
anybody else want to add to that definition?
I think it's hard, like you were saying, to really define entrepreneur right now because, like you said, everybody wants to claim the title, and then they've added like solopreneur. If you work on your own. I've been called that a lot, like, oh, you must be a solopreneur. No, I'm a freelance writer. And you're just kind of looking at it and going, well, where do you draw that line, and how do you label yourself, and do you have to label yourself? It's kind of a weird world out there with all these new names and new titles and everybody trying to sound impressive.
Yeah, I think it does have a little bit of that air to it. I just pulled it up on the dictionary here on my Mac, and we have here a person who organizes and operates a business or businesses taking on greater than normal financial risks in order to do so.
Oh, that's interesting that the dictionary definition as the financial risk, because by that measure, a lot of us really aren't. I certainly am not.
Yeah. Well, I think, and it goes into what my next question here was, the difference basically between an entrepreneur and just owning your own business. Because I think if you own your own business, you have some financial risk, but at least in my mind, I think there's some difference between the two. So what do you guys think is the difference between being an entrepreneur and owning your own business? I mean, I think they can overlap as well, but I think there's also some difference.
To me, just owning your own business can be kind of a static thing. You own a business and you're going from day to day making money in this business, where to me, when you're an entrepreneur, you're kind of in a constant state of creativity, and you're kind of more ambitious than just any regular business owner. You're more about taking things to the next level, about growing a business, about growing multiple businesses possibly, and maybe more about taking calculated risks in order to grow things to a bigger level. Whereas a business owner, you might be happy with, you've got one store in your local area or something, you're happy just to have that one store. For me, an entrepreneurial mindset is more about being ambitious, being creative about how you go about business, and taking calculated risks in order to grow business.
Yeah, I agree. I think with entrepreneurship, it is, as I mentioned, that lifestyle and that mindset. It is about taking that greater risk, and it's always looking at building. I attend all these networking events now from like Silicon Valley and out here in Jersey and Elizabeth, and these networking events, there is that buzzword. So it's like I own a barber shop and then an entrepreneur. So no one wants to use that word. Oh, I'm a small business owner. I'm an entrepreneur. It does lead into, so what's the next phase of your business? Are there other businesses that you're working on? And then it leads into serial entrepreneurship, which I'm still trying to figure that one out. But it is. I definitely think it's mindset and that focus on growth, that state of mental awareness about growing your business.
Yeah, I think when you're an entrepreneur, it's like you're always looking for the next. I don't want to say the next big thing because that kind of sounds kind of cheesy, you know. But maybe just in a different way that you could branch out and do something different. And it could be all related to the one business, or it could be that you're pivoting and doing something else off of what you've learned, but you're never kind of staying in that one sort of spot. If that makes a lot of sense.
You're disrupting traditional technologies and methods, right, Glenn? I don't even know what that means. I just know that I hear like Silicon Valley-esque types like say that a lot.
Well, I'm not personally, but somebody out there might be.
You have to hustle.
As a high school teacher, I feel very disruptive.
You have to bring the hustle.
That's right. Well, I think big. They always say think big, and hustle 24
That's
hours.
Right. You gotta hustle with your solopreneur lifestyle business, right?
It certainly gets a little bit of an overused stigma too, right? But I think it's a real mindset that a lot of people work well with. So, what kind of a mindset do you need? Where does your head have to be at if you're going to be an entrepreneur?
We talked about it. I think it's that risk taking. You have to be able to put yourself out there and assume a greater amount of risk, and know that there's a greater chance of failure. But with that entrepreneurship mindset, it's just because you fail in that one business or in that one channel, that doesn't mean that that takes you down. You go on to the next. So it's like you're in that constant state of motion, yeah.
Now, I mean, would you say it's just taking those risks? Because I think of like the only example I could come up with now is the inventor in Gremlins. He always comes up with a new item that doesn't seem to work. But I think that risk taking also has a portion of it being mitigated as well. Like you're taking risks, but you're taking calculated risks. You're not just kind of putting everything on the line and hoping that something happens.
I think to be an entrepreneur and a successful entrepreneur and to get over the obstacles, and I guess I'm speaking more as someone who's observed entrepreneurs, it seems like you have to have a pretty unshakable belief in yourself and in your abilities within a certain field, because there's going to be so many people that tell you you're stupid for taking risks, and that you're quite likely to fail, which statistically you might be depending on what field you're in. And I think that sort of unshakable belief that in many people, I would say it almost borders on arrogance at times. But like Peter was saying, compare that to a small business owner. There's many people that might say, well, I can take over a small franchise or a small business that's already set up, or I can recognize a little niche and set up shop or whatever. But I think that's fundamentally a different mindset from, listen, I know I've got the tools to make this work. I don't even care necessarily what field I'm an entrepreneur in. I just have this unshakable belief in myself and my mindset and my ability to adapt. And that's something I've noticed about successful entrepreneurs that I've worked with.
So it's a lifestyle that you're getting into. It's wanting to always grow. It's having a decent amount of confidence in your abilities and what you can get done. Anything else that we need to add to those definitions?
Yeah.
For me, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
To say, I think an optimistic outlook is something that you have to have as an entrepreneur, probably, especially when you're still, they might say, a rookie entrepreneur. If you're just starting out and starting on some of your new ideas, you're probably going to be failing here and there. You're not going to always be successful right away. So you have to have that optimistic outlook and that go-getter attitude in order to be able to brush yourself off and try the next big idea. And I think that's probably something that successful entrepreneurs have too, is that intuition of being able to see what's coming down the road and what the next big thing is going to be, and the ability to fill a need before others see that need is even there.
And did you have something to add there, Jason?
Well, that's exactly it. I'm a first-time entrepreneur, and it's been crazy. I've been called crazy about some of the things that I'm working on, but it is exciting, and there is that hustle and that mindset, and remaining optimistic. I've heard the word no, and some other words when I'm talking to venture capitalists. so I've heard it all, but then you really just have to have that confidence, and it could be considered ego, but you really have that you need to have that confidence, and you need to rely on kind of like, you can do this, regardless of the no's, regardless of all the words that I've been called, like, you can do this, and there's a lot of that pep talk. And I think too with entrepreneurship, since it is a skill set, a mindset, and a lifestyle, you can take everything that you've learned in one industry and use it in another. So it's like when we're talking about that small business owner that owns that salon or owns that franchise, it's quite different from an entrepreneur who can use their skills and their mindset in a franchise and then be able to jump into a technology startup or jump into blogging, etc. So I definitely think that's one of the key difference for me when I'm talking to or just experiencing with small business owners and entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that's an interesting aspect to it, that you're not just looking at one specific set of skills for one particular industry. It's more of an umbrella set that you could kind of jump into maybe anything and sort of build something out of it.
Yeah, so just real quick, when you mentioned skills, the first thing that I thought of when you were talking about skills and transfer of skills was the new, I guess, kind of hot major right now is you can go to school. You're laughing already. You know where this is going. I was going to ask you, what do you think about the idea of like majoring in entrepreneurship and getting your degree in entrepreneurship? To me, that just seems weird. To me, it seems like entrepreneurship, you can teach business skills. You can teach that stuff. But entrepreneurship to me doesn't seem like something you can really teach. It's something that you have to like either learn or feel. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I've been invited to a number of universities where I get to talk about entrepreneurship and their Center for Entrepreneurship or their degree or certificate in entrepreneurship. Uh-huh. And it is a buzzword, so it attracts a lot of the younger adults, the college age adults, because it sounds sexy, sounds fun. But you are right. It's business skills. It really is business skills, and it's still the fundamentals: accounting, marketing, HR, operations. All that stuff is lumped into it. And some of the issues that the folks that I talk to in these entrepreneurial focused classrooms or these certificate programs is that how do we get these students to actually execute on a business idea? And I go, that's the big difference between being an entrepreneur and someone who is taking a regular business or going to business school. It's an entrepreneur is gonna take that risk, use the skill sets that they're learning in the classroom, and just start. But it is, I hear it all over the place. Center for Entrepreneurship. It's great that they're building these programs, and it's centered around business classes and tools. But like the one key thing that's missing is the execution piece.
So, do you think that that's something that you can teach? I think that there is something maybe to that you could set up a framework where, maybe put people into groups and you say, look, you guys are going to go out there, figure out a product, and you're gonna execute it like you were talking about, Jason. It doesn't have to be any one particular thing, but you're going to go out and build something, and this is what your coursework might be. I can imagine something like that maybe being in a course or a certificate, and you can probably learn a lot from that type of an atmosphere.
I agree. I think as long as they apply what they're learning. When I was going for my MBA, I took these courses, and my capstone project, I applied it to the company that I was working in, and that allowed me to get promoted. I mean, that enabled me to get promoted. So I was applying the skills that I was learning during my MBA program into my actual workplace, and I think it's entrepreneurship classes or programs that will work are ones that get the students to execute and use the skills. And when I was building the plan for Frugal, just my experience working corporate America, doing budgets and creating business plans, that helped me set the framework to follow in executing a business. And that's part of I feel the rapid growth that we experienced in the last 18 months. It's just I had this experience through traditional channels as well as work experience that allowed me to execute.
So do you think then that part of entrepreneurship is actually, if you want to be successful, you should go and get a little bit of that business side, maybe not necessarily get an MBA, but go and maybe take a couple classes, or at least go and learn something online or audit something or take something from Khan Academy or something. But do you think that that helps then as part of your entrepreneurship?
It's a step in the right direction. And I think that leads to that first question, the difference between a small business owner and an entrepreneur. A small business owner can take all these classes and these courses and the certificate programs, and eventually they'll create their business plan. The entrepreneur, will take that one class, and that one class will inspire them to actually take action and take that risk.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was reading an entrepreneurship blog on the New York Times website. It's written by Jay Goltz, and he was talking about how he doesn't really see a relationship between being a good student and being a successful entrepreneur. He said, if anything, there's kind of a correlation, more of a correlation between people who are bored or annoyed with school and people who succeed in their own businesses. So he kind of went on from there to talk about things that successful entrepreneurs do or they have. And first of all, he said they have that ambition, that hunger to succeed, and that they're just driven and ambitious. Again, they just have that need to be successful. They want to try something new and build something new. And I was reading this story about this one guy who kind of, I think, epitomizes what an entrepreneur is. He was a guy who had a successful restaurant franchise. He built that into 2 or 3 different stores and then a 4th store, and then finally he got bored with that, and he was very successful with it, but he just wanted to move on to the next thing. So he sold his restaurants, took the money he made from that business, and just decided he was going to get into something else that he was interested in. He was interested in fiber optic communications, completely different from the restaurant industry. And then he applied himself. He went into a couple of companies that made these type of products, went in there and learned all about them, kind of became an expert in the field, and then again took that money he had made, started his own company, and within 10 years he had sold the company for $300 million. And again, he got bored with that and sold it and moved on to the next thing. So kind of, again, a serial entrepreneur and a constant quest for learning.
Yeah, so I don't think the education part of it hurts, right? I think if you know how to read books, if you understand how to handle the accounting, and you understand a business plan and you understand the management side of it, those are all skills that I don't think they're going to hurt you. But I don't think that there are things that are always essential necessarily to have in order, and then you can become an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I've heard, and I've spoken with other entrepreneurs on the technology side, and there's this discussion of like, you can be a successful entrepreneur, but once your company becomes corporate, they no longer can thrive in that environment. And so it's sort of like I need a way out, and they'll leave the executive role and they'll remain as a founder of their tech startup. But once the procedures, the guidelines, I would say the bureaucracy of corporations starts, they can no longer thrive in that environment, and they go off on their next entrepreneurial endeavor.
Now, do you think that's just maybe because they're bored and they're trying to figure out something else, or that they don't have necessarily that business knowledge under their belts to kind of keep up with the other people who need to please the stockholders and such. You know what I mean? Like they don't have that person-to-person skill to manage everybody. You know, they're the creator. They're the ones who are doing this. They're the ones who are selling it. But once it gets to that point, they no longer have the same skill set that's needed for the company.
I think it's both. It is part of that, the mindset piece, and the structure. The excitement is no longer gone in terms of the risk. So some of the risk is definitely gone when you've have a very successful venture, high valuation, and you're creating these structures, and you went from a team of 3 or 4 to a team of 1,000. So and that's why I really believe when we're talking about entrepreneurship, it's that mindset, the lifestyle, that rush that you get from the risk and from the successes. So it really that's one of the key components, and also the structure. I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs were kind of big thinkers, and our heads are up in the clouds, and we do need our feet planted firmly on the ground, and we may necessarily not be the right person to take the business onto the next level, or onto an IPO, or onto a merger of some sort. And it does take someone that has more of an extensive business skill or experience to make that happen.
How important in our current environment, you know, where people aren't getting hired full-time anymore, you know, we're seeing the 40-hour job sort of slip away for a lot of companies, and it's sort of the role of the consultant or like bringing the people in. How important is having an entrepreneurial skill set in today's job market? Is it something that you think that every person coming out of high school or college, they should have a little taste of that? Or is it something that's more reserved for just certain people?
Well, I think as far as today's job market goes, I think it's more about flexibility and your ability to adapt and learn new skills. I don't necessarily think that entrepreneurship is for everybody. I know quite a few people who would prefer to just work 9 to 5 and punch their card and go home and not have to mess with it. I'm married to somebody like that. So, I mean, it's just not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. Not everybody wants to work from home. Not everybody wants to own their own business. I think that's fine. But I think as far as today's job market goes, I think one of the advantages that somebody with an entrepreneurship mindset has is that flexibility of mind, that adaptability, that looking forward, that problem solving, and that creativity. And I think that those are all things that the future job market is going to need and that we're going toward as a job market and as a society. But I don't think that you necessarily need to be an entrepreneur to have those things, but I think the entrepreneurs, now I'm talking in circles, but
I think I agree with you, Miranda.
Somebody rescue me.
The flexibility, for example, maybe you yourself are a great example. Your skill set's flexible, but more or less, I get the impression that you apply sort of the same business methods and business strategies repeatedly, just more successfully every year. Whereas an entrepreneurship mindset, while it might have some crossover and some of those flexible skills, as you mentioned right off the top, I think there is a decisive difference there between just basically telling students, you know, you won't be in a career, it's not likely you'll be in a career, the same job for 40 years or the same company for 40 years with a pension, et cetera, et cetera. There's a difference between preparing for that reality and saying everyone needs to be an entrepreneur. Because frankly, I don't think many people are prepared to be entrepreneurs coming out of high school or even out of post-secondary. I think you've got to be pretty close to genius status, possibly to do that right away. And I've noticed, again, most successful entrepreneurs that I've saw have worked with really smart people. They've built some sort of a network of really smart people or a mastermind group or whatever you want to call it before they launch or maybe as they're launching their first entrepreneurship venture. And that just doesn't happen overnight, I think. And I don't think it happens at many university courses either. So I think that's sort of an organic creation that is tough to do at 18 years old or even 21 years old.
That actually reminded me of a question someone asked me. Are you, I just brought back, are you an entrepreneur or are you a business owner? Which one would you want to be? I mean, at that point, I'm like, okay, entrepreneurship is fun. It's a buzzword. but a business owner, you actually have a business that's making money and it's profitable. And
Exactly.
so we could teach in college universities or high schools or whatever programs and workshops about entrepreneurship programs, and we can all say, oh, we're entrepreneurs, but how many of us entrepreneurs have successful businesses? And so when I'm asked, I mean, I do say, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm also a business owner, and so it makes it for a very interesting conversation. And I like to cite the fact that I want to make sure that I have a sustainable company, a sustainable organization, and not just having all these ideas and I execute. And I mean, we're going to have 10 different business ideas and call ourselves an entrepreneur, and none of them actually turns into a business.
So, I mean, yeah, you can be both. You can be a business owner and you could be an entrepreneur as well. It doesn't mean that, you know, an entrepreneur is somebody who's just going to be fly by night and just always thinking about something else, right? So I think you kind of touched on it, Kyle, but how does one person prepare for entrepreneurship? You know, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you know, what do you need to know? Where's your head have to be at?
I don't know. I've read all sorts of conflicting columns, and I have to honestly say I've only maybe dipped my toe in one small corner of the entrepreneurship picture. So I can't speak from experience, but it is quite funny to me, the conflicting stories here. Some people will tell you, don't go to post-secondary, just fly right in, do this, and others will say, no, it's all about taking this path that I did, and others are about working 4 hours a week, and others are about, no, you got to work 20 hours a day and outwork everyone else. And I don't know. I think it's unique to each person. I know that's a cop-out answer, but that's what I take from it anyway.
Well, how much do you think of the entrepreneurship? I mean, look, I'm not going to take away from the amount of work that you have to put into it, and I think that we should make that clear that for all the glamour of the word, you're going to put a lot of work in, right? There's going to be a lot of grunt work, and there's going to be, I think Jason was saying how you might not have a profitable idea for a long time, if at all. But how much of it, we hear all these successful stories, is it luck? And is that like real luck, or is it luck that we've worked towards? You know, how much is it there?
It definitely is a lot of work. And I'm always interested when other entrepreneurs they talk about the 4-hour work week or 10-hour work week, and here I am working 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, so with that hustle. So there's a lot, and then I'll meet some folks who have never heard of frugal, and they'll read something about us or they'll stumble on, and they think we're some kind of overnight success, and I don't think we've even reached at that point just yet. But it's interesting. It's like, oh wow, you're so lucky, and I'm like, well, you haven't spent a day with me where I'm up for 20 hours and I'm hustling, I'm making connections, networking, I'm writing. So it is really interesting how that really pans out, because there's a lot of stuff that we do in the background, and so when we reach a point where our brand gets known, it does seem like it just happened overnight. And that's not luck. I don't think it's luck. I definitely think it's a lot of hard work. You stumble, you fall, you get up, and you keep going.
I think to a certain degree, though, there is in some ways some luck sometimes, and sometimes it's more about recognizing when that luck comes your way and being ready to seize that opportunity and recognizing that opportunity. One of the things, I was really in the right place at the right time when I started my online freelancing. I was really in the right place at the right time. The right person saw me at the right time in the right place for me to get in on the ground floor in this whole blogging thing. And then, I got another lucky break with getting into personal finance just before everything went to hell. So there's just some of those things are about luck and timing, but at the same time, if you haven't put in the hard work and if you haven't prepared yourself, you're not going to be able to take advantage of that luck. You can be the luckiest person in the world, but if you don't do anything to take advantage of that, then you're done. It's over. And so I think there's there's a couple elements, and you do, but it is a lot of hard work. And like Jason said, people are like, "Oh, you're an overnight success," and you're like, "No, I'm not. I've been doing this for years, and just one day you woke up and I hit critical mass." I mean, seriously, just because I finally hit critical mass does not mean I'm an overnight success.
I think you were being a little bit humble there, Miranda, and that saying luck and you were in the right place at the right time and stuff. I think being prepared for your breaks is a big deal. And like before those breaks happened for you, you prepared by like building a skill set and having an idea, and it wasn't an accident you were online sort of looking for that break, right? So sure, there was like a little bit of a semblance of circumstances, but as you mentioned, like, you know, if there's a lot of people that break comes and it's like, oh, that'd be a lot of work. I'm already doing something that's pretty good, or whatever the case may be, right? I'm comfortable. So you got to be prepared for that break, I think, if you're going to try and go that solopreneur or entrepreneur or even freelance route.
Speaking of solo, I think it's in Star Wars, in response to Han Solo, where Obi-Wan says, you know, in my experience, there's no such thing as luck. You know, and I always took that like, you know what, you know, people think luck just comes up, but, you know, the more you're doing, the more you're working, these lucky opportunities or things that people think are luck seem to come up more often for the people who really put the work in.
What's that saying? Luck is preparation meets opportunity.
Hard work and preparation meet opportunity.
Yeah, it's like, because part of it too. It's like I get these amazing opportunities, and people go, "Wow, you're so lucky. You got a chance to. You met Miranda. How did that happen?" Well, we networked. we tweeted, we emailed, we commented on. Yeah, so it's like there's work in that, and so there's a lot. And when I get asked like how have we reached this point? It is a lot of work, and it's recognizing. I think when you're out there, you put your foot out into the world of entrepreneurship, into the world. It's like you'll recognize, and hopefully you'll recognize the opportunity, and you'll seize that opportunity.
I think half the battle when you're trying to have an entrepreneurial endeavor is just putting yourself out there and trying to seize opportunities when you see them. You know, people might say it's luck that you got something, but on the other hand, they may not have seen the other 4 ventures that failed before that one. You know, oh, you're so lucky. You know, overnight success. Well, yeah, I was overnight success after 4 years of struggles and 80-hour work weeks and all this stuff. So
it does take a lot of energy to run down those leads. Like Peter was saying. I mean, it's seemingly random. I don't know. Maybe there's an element of randomness. You know, for example, myself and Tom, who's on this here, I started writing for Tom. And all of a sudden, that led to one thing, led to another, and all of a sudden, you know, I'm copying his style and buying a website, stuff like that. And it is a seemingly random experience, but if you are expanding all that energy, chasing down leads, and you know, doing authentic networking, we've talked about the difference between non-authentic and actually productive networking and stuff. I think that does lead inevitably to good things.
Yeah, I think that's a key there. It's knowing when those doors are opening and actually stepping through them and then doing something with it. And I think a lot of people, you don't always see that coming. You know, something comes by and it's like it came and went, but you didn't jump on it, or you didn't know to even jump on it. And that might be one of the key defining factors of what an entrepreneur is. An entrepreneur knows to keep an eye out for those different things. And when it comes, they jump. And it might not necessarily be defined to their particular industry that they're working in, but they know that there's something there that they need to grab onto. And then that leads to maybe something bigger or different at least.
I agree. I remember when I had this idea for Frugal, and I was pitching it to investors and VCs, and they kept saying, no, this is horrible, this sucks, there's no interest in it whatsoever. But I kept plugging away, and I said, I'm going to make this happen. And so I went the crowdfunding route, and I was successful in raising $78,000 through Indiegogo. But everyone goes, wow, that's awesome, and they say there's a lot of luck into that, but they don't see the 6 months of prep work that I did in building a community. And for those 30 days during the crowdfunding, I did not sleep. I looked like death. And I did not sleep. And when we reached our kind of our goal, it was just my body just collapsed because it was just pure exhaustion. And I think I disappeared for like 3 days and to reemerge because it was. And those are things that I find. And so it's like, no, I'm still going to make this happen. And at the back end. And so it is interesting when I talk about that. It's like, oh yeah, so you set it and you forget it, and all of a sudden there's success in crowdfunding. I'm like, no, there's a lot of hard work, things that you don't see.
Yeah, see, I think somebody might say, oh yeah, you're lucky that you hit your goal and whatever, thinking that all you do is you put an idea on a website and saying, give me money, and everybody would be like, yeah, that's awesome, take it. Like, that truly would be lucky.
Shut up and take my money.
Yeah, if that could actually happen to you, that would be lucky, right? But what you did was you hustled for that. I bet you were watching that every day. You were probably pitching it all over the place as the site was up and just really sweating it out and making it happen there. Which is like the not luck would have been nice to have probably in addition to all the hard work you did, right? But luck is really just something. I think what we're trying to say there is it's something that you generate yourself, that you're going to create your own luck.
I was reading something from Brandon Turner over at Bigger Pockets, who was on one of our recent episodes, and he was talking about something that keeps people from being successful in entrepreneurship. And that thing he said was making excuses keeps you from being successful, because when you're making excuses for reasons why you can't do something, instead of trying to focus on reasons you can do things or how you can do things, you're going to end up being one of those people that's saying, oh, you're so lucky, to everybody else who is working hard and putting themselves out there and trying to be a problem solver.
Yeah, good point. So, Jason, you talked about your funding there, and that leads to another topic I have here. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, does that mean that you have to have lots of money? Like, do you need to have some store of cash somewhere in order to start working on your idea?
No, and I think that's what prevents people from starting on a business venture or an idea. It's that they need this store of cash in order to do so, and you can actually validate an idea before you start spending some cash. And part of my validation process was the crowdfunding route. I started personal finance blogging and I built a community. And 6 months later, I was sharing this vision I had, and and there was validation at that point. So before I started building the product, before we hired the engineers to do so, we started validating and seeing if we could crowdsource and curate content online. And what prevents people from executing is this idea: I need a website, I need business cards, I need to incorporate, there's all these things that they compound and pile up, and all of a sudden they're still there just with the idea and a list of tasks that aren't fun to do. And so I always make the suggestion that if you have a business idea, get your first customer without spending a dime, and test it out. And if you can get someone to pay for that idea on the spot, then you have a really viable business. And of course, it's different for those who are in the internet space, because you do need to spend your URL and things like that. But there are ways for that too. You get some free sites and start writing your content, and eventually when you pick up and you build your community, yes, go get your own domain, spend that money on the domain, spend your money on that hosting, but don't let that stop you from starting just because you don't have the necessary funds to do all those tasks or that list of things to do.
And as glamorous as our lives all seem to be here, it doesn't take a lot to buy a URL or to get a free website somewhere to validate the idea. So how do you go about getting that first customer? I know there's lots of different ways, or to validate the idea. I think that's a scary thing for a lot of people. How does somebody start working on that?
It's so if you have a product to sell, you may want to build a prototype, and let's say you you create a wallet or whatever that may be. You build that prototype and you put it into a marketplace and you test it. You don't spend the money on creating inventory or building up inventory, and just see if there is a market for your particular product using an existing marketplace. When it comes to a service, if you want to write and you want to be a writer, etc., it's a matter of reaching out to your network and saying, is there work available? And that's how I started with when I was figuring out what to do with my next phase of my career before I jumped into the world of entrepreneurship. I was speaking with my network and asking them, I have this specific skill set on social media, marketing. Would you pay me for doing this, for helping you build your Facebook page, build your Facebook network? And I got my first clients that way before I spent any money on any websites or any business cards or any incorporation.
So you could pretty much scale it really small, like you said, go after the one customer, and then from there you could work out the logistics on how to make it bigger.
Yeah, because you could spend a whole entire year building a business, and once you launch, you don't have your customers. So it's easier when you have a bunch of ideas that you haven't spent a dime, and then you get that first paying customer to say, okay, there's something here. Then you can go and spend some time, spend some cash to get to the next phase.
Good point.
So here's my question. This is another one where I've read these opposing views in entrepreneurship, and you hear these people that never take no for an answer, and just work until you collapse, and that's the way to get ahead. And then the others are like, no, fail fast. If it doesn't work, just abandon it, move on to the next thing. And where's the line there? And obviously it depends. But maybe what variables I don't have that entrepreneurship sense maybe that would tell me when to cut and run and when to stick it out, because I have no idea.
It depends. I mean, if you have vision for something grander, that will propel you to keep plugging away. But there are different pieces that just doesn't work. And for me, as a first-time entrepreneur, I go and I start planting these seeds, and some of them will bear fruit, and that's golden. I'm going to spend my time, my resources on that one particular pot. But everything else, I just let go. So it's sort of like you have an idea, execute as quickly as you can, and you'll see. And maybe it is entrepreneurial sense, but it's like you'll know that there's something there, either from the feedback that it is great and that they're willing to work with you on this idea in terms of a partnership, or it's someone giving you $5 for whatever it is that you're selling. So it is that. It's like set it out, fail, and move, and then you'll learn. You'll actually learn in terms of how to pitch, how to sell it, and it's better to iterate on an initial idea than to spend a year building an idea that there's no market for.
And I'm just going to cut in here. We do have a few people here that seem to be on our Q&A app, and I just want to reiterate that if you have questions about entrepreneurship, you can ask those questions in the Q&A app, and we'll try to get to them. So it's not like a big chatting thing where we're all going to jump in on it, but if you have a question, we'll try to get to it.
Right, yeah. We're not taking extra people on the video or anything.
Right. But to a little bit of what you said, Jason, it sounds like a little bit of what you need to do is to actually figure out what's working when you're working on a project. What aspects of it are people responding to, and then work from there. Because I think what you might go into it having an idea of what something is changes when people respond to it. Right? So you listen to what the audience is saying, that the audience being your customers or whoever is willing to pay for it, and then go with what's working, go with what they're looking for, go with what they're actually responding to, and not keep trying to pitch maybe your one thing that you think might work, but it's not really taking traction.
Absolutely. I think there's 1% of the population that can make people want something that hasn't existed, and they're willing to pay for it.
and they're called Apple.
Yeah. And I mean, it'd be awesome, right? If we had this idea and we put it out into the world, and everyone is willing to pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for it, but that really is very rare. And just my journey, it's like I had this idea, and it has iterated probably 20 times in the last 18 months, but every single iteration it's gotten better, and that's just from the feedback from the community. That's that lean methodology that I think everyone should learn. And it's something that's another buzzword in the tech startup world, lean methods. And yeah, it's like start with that minimal viable product, the least amount of time, the least amount of resources used, and get the feedback from your potential marketplace. And then you're going to come out with a better product. And so that's the best way. It's just you test it out. Don't spend that time. Don't spend that cash. That's not necessary. Test out the waters and start communicating with your market.
And in this day and age with the internet and whatnot, it's a lot easier to do that and to test things out and to move on ideas than it used to be. Right? We certainly have access to a lot more of the world and a lot more finding out what people want than we ever used to before. So let's say I'm doing well with whatever it is that my idea is, right? I'm building things up, things are growing. At what point, like if you have a 9-to-5 job, you're sitting in a cube somewhere, how do you know when it's time to go full-time as an entrepreneur and maybe let that daytime job go? Any ideas, anyone? Any thoughts? Or are we all still at our 9-to-5s?
So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'd feel a little up on a pedestal if I was to give someone else advice, being that I'm still enjoying the 9-to-5, or in my case, I guess more like 8 to 3:30, being a teacher. But yeah.
And yeah, it stops right after that 3:30, right?
Depending on who you ask, yeah. I fall somewhere in the middle of that. The union folks that say we all work till 12 at night every night, and then the people that think that teachers work 5 hours a day. But yeah, anyway, random tangent from that. As Jason, what maybe for you, what was sort of the key defining moment for you? Well, say like, yes, I need to do this on my own.
Yeah, well, I actually wasn't. I didn't have the traditional path. I wasn't. I never considered myself an entrepreneur. I never thought I would be an entrepreneur. As I mentioned, I went to business school. I became a senior executive at a financial institution, and I was making really good money and just accumulating stuff. But I didn't have purpose. And I love what I did, my job. I love the people I worked with, but something was missing, and I couldn't understand what that was. And so I didn't jump into entrepreneurship or started on this idea. What I did was I took a step back and I quit my job. So I left my VP job into the unknown. But before I did that, so I resigned on July of 2011, and I didn't leave my company until January of 2012. So it's like 6 months, and that's because I was skimmish, because it's the unknown. There's a lot of risk in figuring out what my next phase of my career was. But then I backpacked. I went backpacking around the world. I went through 20 countries in 12 months in 2012, and I had an aha moment where I was able to define my purpose, and I wanted to empower a generation of millennials in making better financial decisions. And so when I got back in 2013, I said, I'm going to do this, and it became my passion project. So when people ask, are you a startup founder? Are you a business owner? And I was like, well, yes, I'm all those things, but this is my passion project, and this is what I'm working to build to help millions of people, and that has gotten me through it. But when it comes to others, I think, who are working that 9-to-5, it's okay to work that 9-to-5 and build on an idea, because when you think about it, you're working 40 hours a week, and there's 168 hours in a week. So there's plenty of time to experiment and see if there's that traction. And so I don't have an actual answer on when you should leave your job, because I went a totally different route. But I think when you're comfortable, and I was able to save at the same time, before I jumped ship from my corporate job, and so I was stable. I was financially stable for 3 years. I had enough for 3 years to live on.
I think we need to ask Glenn this question because Peter and Kyle still have real jobs, and I went straight from grad school to freelancing. I think Glenn's the only one who's like had to truly transition.
Yeah, but I don't kind of fall into that bracket either because I chose to stay home so I could watch the kids. I didn't do it for the business so much. That's just like a little bit of a benefit that I maybe have a little more time, which isn't always the case either. So I'm not necessarily the person to ask either on that issue. So it seems like the really only answer we might have so far is that you might want to have some financial cushioning if you're going to leave a job and try to go into this.
I feel like entrepreneurship could be like its own episode. Sorry, go ahead, Pete. You have more experience in that realm than I.
Well, I don't know about that, but I kind of wonder maybe if you don't necessarily need to leave a job to be an entrepreneur or to start multiple entrepreneurial endeavors. A lot of us know Steve Chu over at mywifequitherjob.com, and he's been working his day job still and starting a six-figure business on the side. Actually, I think multiple six-figure businesses on the side. So, it's not necessarily something that you have to do to leave your job, but I think it is a good idea either way to be making sure that your finances are in a row and that you're making good financial decisions, especially if you are going to be leaving a job.
Man, that guy is so lucky. Yeah, you don't always have to leave a job, right? It depends on what you're doing. I think it also depends on your situation too. I think there's a difference when you're a single person and maybe you have some very low expenses and maybe you can take those financial risks a little bit better than if you have a family and a bunch of people who are relying on a steady income and health care and all sorts of other different things too. So you have to take a lot of different things into consideration if you're going to try to make that jump.
Yeah, and I think those who make that jump and they don't have the financial cushion, that's an added stress level in terms of if your organization, your company's not profitable, you're just adding stress, and now you're not making the right decisions for your business in terms of its long-term stability. It's so okay, I need to go make sure I have enough to pay my rent, and so you're taking those short-term gains just to keep the upkeep, the expenses, the monthly expenses. And so it is important to have that cushion, and I don't necessarily think you need to jump ship. I think it's one of those, it's not one way or the other. It's what works for you.
Yeah. So let's start to close up here, and I think you touched on it, Jason, earlier on, but how do you deal with the friends and family that are all doubters? With everybody that's telling you no. I mean, look, I think when you hear it from the business side, maybe that's a little bit easier because it's not as personal. But when you have people all around you saying no, you're crazy to do this. Why are you bothering? Don't do it. How do you deal with that?
I've been very fortunate where I have a very supportive family and a very supportive network of friends and even colleagues. If they're not saying it in front of my face and they're saying it behind me, it's like it's a filter. So I have this filter to take out any of the negative thoughts or comments. So that's one thing. But if you have passion in something that you want to work that you're working on that has potential to become a business and a profitable business, you really cannot listen to your friends and to your family members on that, and be conscious of who you listen to, regardless if it's friends, family, or strangers, and seek out advice. That's what I found. It was if I was proactive in reaching out to my family and my friends about a business issue or anything like that, they're very receptive and they get to understand. And what I'd like to do is tell them about how hard it is to run a business or to build us to the point where we're in.
Okay, good. Thank you. on that. Yeah, it's always gotta be hard when people are like, they don't take anything seriously. But I think you're right about filtering it out, and where's your passions in it. But I think Kyle touched on something also in that you build a mastermind, or you have a network of people who you find people that you can ask them. Maybe people have gone through it before or going through right now, and see where they're at, and kind of this way you could pitch things to them. I know we've certainly done this as a group, where you build up to the point where you have people, you have a problem, you could shoot it to them and say, how do you deal with this? How have you gotten past it? And that can certainly help you get past all the no's and doubters that are out there.
You're right, and I mean, even when I said you should speak with your family and your friends about your business successes and your failures, they're not necessarily the right group to be giving you advice or feedback on your business. So you want to surround yourself with like-minded folks or people that's within that industry or doing some amazing things that you want to be a part of or that you want to do yourself. And I mean, is it important that your parent says no, your idea, go get a job? Is that as important as a business person that has gone through it and is going through the same thing that you're going through, that same path, providing you better feedback, more reassuring feedback? I think just and there's a lot of entrepreneurs that I see that they talk to their family, talk to their friends for advice, and I say, go find yourself a mastermind group, go find yourself other like-minded business, grow your network, and speak with them about your business, and just share certain things with family and friends.
Yeah, I think you have to know who you're asking and why. And family and friends is certainly okay depending on who's out there, but you got to know what type of answers you're going to get when you start talking to them too. So I think we've done a pretty good job on entrepreneurship today. I'd like to wrap up now. What we like to do is have a final word on our subject. So we'll go around and have a final word on what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Let's start with Peter. What's your final word on being an entrepreneur?
Well, I think if you're thinking about getting into entrepreneurship, my suggestion is just to stop making excuses of why you can't do it or why can't I do this or that, and just think about ways that you can do things. Have a positive outlook and be a problem solver. Look for solutions, and once you start doing that, you'll be on the way towards doing that. So.
And Miranda, what's your final word on being an entrepreneur?
I think it's about one of the best things you can do is look for the opportunities and be open to them, and then and make sure you're prepared. But you need to be able to recognize an opportunity. I know somebody who's always complaining about how he never gets ahead or whatever, and he's never lucky or anything. But I'm just like, he's had several opportunities. And some of them have been like placed right in front of him, just right there, where he could just like reach out and grab it. And he doesn't recognize that. He hasn't, and it sort of goes into what Peter was saying about, being positive or whatever, but he doesn't recognize it, and so he's just like, oh no, it'll never happen for me, and I'm just like, dude. And so I think you really need to stop and look around and say, where are the opportunities, and am I prepared to take advantage of them when I see them? And I think that'll be probably your biggest source of success as far as moving forward goes.
And Kyle, what's your final word?
I guess my final word is I'm teaching a Start Your Own Business course I've briefly talked about on this podcast before, and kids would shock you, and by kids, anywhere from like 12 years old to 18, whatever, kids will shock you with outside-the-box thinking that I think has been maybe bred out of us adults a little bit. And so maybe just encourage young people to try it. I mean, the stakes are usually pretty small when you're young. You can make some mistakes, gain some cool skills, and worst case scenario, you find out that entrepreneurship maybe isn't for you, or at least for a little while. And you might be pleasantly surprised with what young people in your life might cook up.
And Jason, if you close out our final word, your final word on what it takes to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think definitely find a problem that you're passionate about solving, and create a solution, and focus on that solution, and that will fuel you to execution. So yeah, definitely find the problem, create the solution, and execute.
Jason, thanks for joining us. How can people out there listening and watching find out more information about yourself and frugal.com?
You can visit my website, Frugal, that's PHROOGAL.com, or through jasonvitug.com. And you could follow me on Twitter with Frugal or at Frugal or at jasonvitug as well.
And again, what does your site aim to do for people?
Empower a generation to make better financial decisions through crowdsourced and curated information.
Excellent. Thank you again for joining us, Jason, and thank you everybody out there for watching and listening to us. And until next week, be good with your money. Good night.
Thanks for joining us on the Money Mastermind Show. Get more information at moneymastermindshow.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Google+.